special counsel. Roll call shows that Councilor Osher, Councilor Wingard, Councilor Robertson, and Councilor Rennie are here in the council chambers with me. And Councilor Gardner is joining us by Zoom. So we're all here. The first item of business is an executive session pursuant to 36 MRSA, Section 841. And I can't say that last part. That's second. So could I have a motion to go into executive session, please?
So
And a second.
Second.
And seconded.
So we are going to depart this meeting.
Well, let's take a vote
Oh, I'm
first.
sorry.
Oh,
Oops,
yeah.
I'm the one that's.
And I suppose we're supposed to do the roll call.
Yes, I can do that.
Okay,
Um,
please.
Roll call. Counselor Gardner,
In favor?
Counselor Perry,
In favor?
Counselor Osher,
Favor.
Counselor Wingard,
In favor.
Counselor Robertson,
In favor.
Counselor Grenier.
In favor.
That is all in favor, none opposed.
Thank you.
All right. So now I'm going to leave this meeting. Megan, you've got a link to an executive session. We're going to go into that executive session. So give me just a minute. Bella's going to leave this meeting open so the public can see nothing. But Okay, thank you.
Okay, we are back in open session. And we have two orders to consider. And order 21210, order to consider a request for poverty abatement based on poverty and or disability, number 2021-003. Could I have a motion on this, please?
Move approval.
So this is the first abatement, and your motion was to approve it. Is that,
We wanted to,
that was
That
not
what I
what I
was. Well,
so let's,
so move. Okay, so I don't know what I was supposed to have said that.
so I wouldn't ever tell you what to say, but I might suggest that you would say, I make a motion to deny
Okay.
abatement application 2021-003.
Okay, so I make a motion to deny abatement number 2021-003.
second, please.
Second.
We will have no discussion on this
So-
motion.
I'll move to a roll call.
We Vote for roll call.
Counselor Perry,
In favor.
Counselor Gardner,
In favor?
Osher,
I'm not there.
Counselor Robertson. In favor. Counselor Grenier,
In favor?
Counselor Wingard. That passes on a vote of 5-2, 5-1, sorry.
Thank you. And we need a motion on the next item, which is to consider a request for poverty abatement based on poverty and or disability, number 2021-004.
I would make a motion to abate 50% of the amount requested for 2021-004.
Thank you, Megan. Have a second, please.
Second.
Seconded by Kerry. Ready for roll call vote?
Counselor Perry,
In favor.
Counselor Gardner,
In favor?
Counselor Osher,
Favor.
Counselor Robertson. In favor. Counselor Grenier,
In favor?
Counselor Wingard.
In favor.
That passes unanimously.
Thank you. And moving on to item 3, which is the workshop on municipal wage and labor analysis. We have some
Excellent.
staff members here, which are going to help us with that.
Yeah, so the first thing I want to do is introduce everybody. You're used to Mitch, but I don't know if you know Zach Turner. Zach Turner is the deputy finance manager, and he has been helping me on this project. And so I wanted you to be able to give him a hard time too. So I don't think it is going to come to a surprise to anybody that we are seeing a dramatic change in Orono's ability to be competitive with labor in the region. And we've seen that in public works when we've tried to hire people in and cannot bring them in at the rates that we are able to pay. We've talked about that in the public safety setting as well. WPCF is another situation where we cannot bring in trained operators. We've tried twice, and we're going to get ready to do it again when Joe retires. And we are falling off the market. So I can't just come to you and say, I think, and I want, because when I do that, I'm quite sure you'll say, that's nice, come back when you have something that you can tell us that's concrete. We have gone through, and my initial plan was to bring you, and I've got some stuff, but I'm going to wait just a little bit. My initial plan was to look at our pay scales, compare them, make the adjustment, or at least know what the adjustment was, and come back and say, can we, for January 1, do a partial adjustment to get people on the way? And then over the next 2 years, work to bring our pay scales more in line. And I think that that needs to be done in some regard. The issue that we've got is we are very far off the market, a lot farther than I thought we would be. So I asked Zach to go through and look. We've kind of divided the town into 4 sections, right? We've got public safety, public infrastructure, our hourly administrative or program staff, and our salary administrative program staff. I have left myself out of this because that seems kind of presumptuous. That's up to the council to do if you choose. So I was hoping he could just talk to you a little bit about the process we went through and how we collected the data so that you will see, because he gave me 65 spreadsheets and I have condensed that into a few pay scale sheets for you.
Should I take it away?
You got it.
So as Sophie said, I'm the deputy finance manager here. My primary duty, I'd say, is payroll, starting to learn human resources. So this has been a fun and interesting project for me. We used the MMA salary survey to try and compare other towns to us as best we could, and it was relatively good to match, easy to match up police and fire because they're kind of uniform. The problem we ran into is all these different towns classify all their different workers in different ways. So when we break out into more specialized positions, some people have one person doing 15 different roles. And it's basically matching apples to oranges. And that was a little bit of a struggle, especially with Public Works and WPCF, because they had ranges ranging anywhere from, $13 an hour up to $28 an hour. More specialized positions. And then we also ran into that with some of our admin staff where we have myself, I do a lot of different things versus, other towns that have more specialized positions. And the MMA salary survey, I feel, has very cookie cutter roles to kind of plug people into. And it's really hard to compare us to the rest of the municipalities out there.
So, you good?
Yeah, I think so.
So what I'd like to do is we kind of set up this general idea that we've done this analysis. I'd like to start, well, I would like to start with police and fire because quite honestly, they are the place that we are hemorrhaging the most. I'd like to kind of have that discussion. We've got Chief looking for a meeting. So if it is all right with you, that needs to happen in an executive session because this is all bargaining material. So we're gonna kick people out. Belle, are you staying there to monitor the meeting?
Yep, I will keep this meeting open.
All right.
So I'm going back to the executive session link that I just came from.
Yes, you are.
Okay.
So we need a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing pursuant to MSRA Section 405E for discussion related to collective bargaining with IAFF Local 3106 and Maine Association of Police Orono Unit. So now could I have a motion to go into an executive session? Thank you, Lori. In a second, Cheryl?
Sure, second.
Thank you.
Mitch, can you come run the roll call for me? Yes, just run the roll call. All the councilors that you
Okay, including Megan's. Counselor Gardner,
In favor?
Counselor Grenier,
In favor?
Counselor Perry,
In favor?
Counselor Robertson,
In favor.
Counselor Wingard,
In favor.
Counselor Osher.
Favor.
That is 6 in favor and none opposed.
So we are going to leave this meeting and I will meet you in executive session. Thank you, Avi. I got it from here.
Thanks for your technical expertise.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Okay, we're moving on to the committee. It says roll call, but everybody is here, so if we need to do anything more with that. Finance and Operations Committee is first. Town pay scale review and proposed adjustments. I think we
December 20th?
pretty much covered that for the 20th. And request to expend ARPA funds for Lucas chest compression system. And I believe that must be our fire chief.
It is. Sophie, I have a memo when I started hearing over here that had the specific amount, but I,
35,000 and some 34,000 and some change.
thank you. I apparently misplaced it somewhere along. Oh, okay, look at that.
For 2.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. So, when we, what we're looking for is to purchase 2 chest compression devices, including a 4-year service plan for each of the devices through a company called Lucas. And what this device does is it basically allows us to provide CPR without placing our hands on the person. There's a couple different benefits to it. When you're working somebody who's in cardiac arrest, meaning their heart is stopped, you're required to perform chest compression. You've always seen that. A problem arises when we have to take hands off of that person. If you think about it as a pump, when we pump, you have to build up enough pressure so you have adequate volume moving through the system. There's some other science behind it. One of the big things that we try to avoid is stopping those compressions, because as soon as we do, the pressure in the system dumps down to nothing. And once we start compressions again, we have to rebuild that pressure. So even though we may compress 30 times, only about 18 of those compressions are really delivering oxygen and stuff like that to the body. And we would have to stop at times to do electric defibrillation to stop the heart from fluttering, or when we breathe for the patient before we get an advanced airway device in. So this blocks that interruption in the compressions. It just allows the person to continue to be compressed. And there's some other science that goes behind with positioning and stuff like that this device is used for. More specifically in the setting of coronavirus, when we do those chest compressions, we are high on the person's chest, so right up about nipple line area when we're providing compressions, which places our head and our face basically in the exhalation of somebody when we're providing CPR. Even when we have an advanced breathing device in, there still has to be that exhalation of air. If it's not filtered properly, which can happen at times, it exposes the providers to exhaled air. It can also expose them to vomitous secretions, those types of things. So really the hands-off device is better for the patient, and it's better for our providers in performing CPR. It doesn't, there's no fatigue involved and those types of things. So if you have questions, I'll certainly take whatever we have.
And this device has been used successfully in other departments. And
It has.
a good reputation. And
Yes, just recently, Maine Emergency Medical Services, the governing board of all ambulances in the state of Maine, essentially, approved those. And they were approved about 1.5 years ago. Other departments have used these. It's a very reputable company. There have been no failures that I've heard of, at least locally. And we like it. We think it's a reliable device.
So this would be a sole source simply because they're the only ones that have this. This is the one specifically that has been approved, and it's on the ARPA eligible list.
any questions? Sounds like a easy decision to me.
It does. It's a good way to.
I'm seeing nod from Megan.
spend some funds.
Okay.
Want to vote on that? Are you okay with?
I'm not going to expend the funds. I'm gonna put it on a council order and you'll
Great.
approve it. Awesome.
Thanks for
Thank
bringing that to us. Thank you.
And a 4-year service.
Yes.
Can't beat that.
So that lets us move on to community development.
Great. So our first item is the Town Council Environment Committee charge.
Want me to take that, Cheryl?
Yes.
Okay. So about a year and a half ago, you guys actually adopted an enabling order that created the ad hoc environment committee. And when you did that, it was a very, very narrow charge. I included that in your background. Yeah.
That's what it was.
And so one of the things as the world has changed and we're seeing some real benefits to having this body of volunteer resident experts at our disposal. Belle and I met with Cheryl, and Cheryl met with the Environment Committee team. And the goal is, number one, to align the committee more like any other council committee. My understanding is Jeff Wingard has consented to being appointed to this committee, but he is thinking he's going to step off finance and maybe.
If there's enough bodies on finance.
Okay.
prefer to do that.
If you look, this is a unique committee because we have these volunteer resident experts, but that group wants to stay on Zoom. And for right now, we can do that because of the pandemic. However, if they are formally appointed individuals, we run into an issue when the COVID numbers start to go down. So the way around that, I think, is to have the same setup we have now. Only town councilors are appointed to the committee. There will be one counselor that will be the chair, and Jeff will also be there, but anybody can show up to any meeting and participate. The Zoom, our resident experts can stay on Zoom because they are not formally appointed individuals and they're not making decisions for the community. So as long as Belle and the counselors are here, other people can Zoom in. We just have to make it available on the same terms to the rest of the community. Talked with Cheryl. She's happy with the committee as it currently stands. One thing that we've said is that these are volunteer resident experts, so we're really looking for people who have some kind of technical expertise to offer our process. And back when we put this together, Cindy was the council chair. The charter says I'm supposed to sit with the council in council workshop or committee. She had agreed that this was an extra duty. And honestly, Belle is, by virtue of her job duties, the most appropriate person to staff this committee. Gives her a little bit of experience with council. And so one of the things we're doing here that's different is it's the town manager or designee. So you're saying right off the bat, you're okay if I'm not at every meeting. The charge is to work with staff to draft an environmental action plan for the council's consideration. You'll notice this is an advisory board. So this is not a board that's committing the town to anything or directing staff in any way. They're helping. They're going to advise staff on policies and or operations that have potential to impact the community. Going to support and collaborate with carbon reduction and resiliency planning efforts. They are going to support and collaborate with our regional climate adaptation and resilience planning efforts. They're going to evaluate legislation and look for grant opportunities. They are going to identify ways that they can mitigate some barriers or challenges for equitable participation in environmental sustainability opportunities. And they're going to talk about equity issues associated with environmental burdens, because a lot of the time, people who have more resources are able to participate in those programs, whereas people with less can't, and we really need to make them open for everybody. This group will look at things like, we know there's a lot of money coming through for weatherization programs and
Electrification.
yeah, so we're gonna, this is a group that would help us kind of set all that stuff up. But the charge ultimately would need to be approved by council. And I think Cheryl and I are just saying, here's a draft.
And a lot of this, a lot of this stuff we've kind of done anyway, so we're working, we're all working together. So this was a brainstorming with the committee about things that we have either talked about, or the town, with the wastewater treatment, WPCF brought to the committee. So we're not going over policies and advising. Typically, the town is bringing the policies to us. And so far, and that's where I'd like to keep that. I want to keep that right there. You know, Dan Dixon with the University of Maine is, I don't even have words for him. Invaluable as a volunteer for this, but everybody, this committee is really nice with all the education that they bring to it, and the fact that they're all Orono residents, and they're all equally vested in this. So, and now we have Jeff too. So.
I think this is great, and Cheryl, I really appreciate the fact that you brought this concept to us in the beginning, and if they can hold it.
It's
really run
timely,
with
I
it.
think, yeah.
Questions, comments? This would need to go to a regular council meeting for approval.
Oh, hearing nothing else? Moving on. Great.
All right.
Next is the town gateway sign, and we talked about this last meeting and got mock-ups.
We have mock-ups of the signs. So you're gonna notice, the top line has the seal. We've got a red border, a gold border, and no border. Down below, the exact same thing without the seal. So I am looking for some direction.
I like the top middle.
I like the top middle.
So the seal is somewhere in there at a halftone? Is that-
The seal is on.
It's a watermark.
Yeah.
It's over the O? Yeah, okay.
And I think Mitch and Bell did a good job because Chief Orono is right in the middle of
I
the
saw
O.
that,
You
yeah.
can see his whole face.
That's great.
It's subtle enough.
I honestly could look at any of them.
Yeah.
May,
I think that it's hard for me to tell based on, I mean, I have an email with them in like, you know, top to bottom order. So I'm not quite sure at this distance what one y'all are pointing out there, but I thought that the example that has a maroon border.
That's
that's
it,
the one they're
yeah.
talking about.
Okay, good, because I kind of like, probably aesthetically, I like the ones without the maroon border and without the gold border, but I think that symbolically, without the borders, it's a little bit too humane color combo. And so I kind of like the, you know, the welcome with the background in maroon and then the maroon border, because it's like, you know, we're the Red Riots and humane is in us. So let's put humane colors inside Orono's colors. I kind of like that.
Any, go here.
We're gonna have a informal conversation with members of the Penobscot Nation to discuss whether the watermark is appropriate. Does that happen?
My understanding is it has.
Great.
And the consensus is there's no consensus. They're just as confused as we are. No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that lightly. I'm saying that there's not really a definitive yay or nay from the people that I talked to. So,
So we as representative, you have that as representative council, or that's informal?
very informal.
Okay, so we haven't had, the council hasn't talked since we had the presentation from Penobscot Nation about this.
Well, I don't think there, if I'm wrong, I don't think there was we didn't need to go back to them. They presented to us a while back and their thoughts on that, right?
Right.
So last week,
Oh,
council
you weren't here.
had a significant conversation
Right, and I
about,
thought that the vote was that you're gonna have the halftone.
yes, we're bringing it back to show people.
These are the mock-ups of different thoughts of colors and stuff like that and options. to
Right,
see
but I
what-
thought, I wasn't there for the vote, but I understood that there would be a halftone, so that means the bottom three aren't what you had voted on Monday.
Well, yes and no. I think what it was is we did have a discussion about it and it came to about, let's put up some stuff, some options. We did agree on the bikes instead of the paddling stuff, but to just kind of give us both options. Yes, we were kind of leaning that way, but we wanted to see both options of what it would look like.
So this is where we are.
And
Yeah.
was someone in the council tasked with talking to the Penobscots, or that's not necessary?
Cheryl.
Yeah.
had that
So
conversation.
what I found is that they're not answering, or it's just an indifference. I don't think it's as big of a deal. I don't want to say it like that, but I haven't found anyone that has really been that vested. So I don't think I think Darren has given his opinion on the history. John Bear also, as far as the tribal council goes and the tribal administration, they're just not, it's just not an important, it's not as important to them, I
And
guess.
the,
And so I also reached out to Penobscot residents who are taxpayers in Orono to see what they thought. And there, again, I had one woman who said, and this is, I was talking to Tom today, who said that she trusts Orono Council. She said, she said Orono voted on Indigenous Peoples' Day. They voted to get off the Penobscot v. Mills legislation. And she said, if it stays, it's okay. And if it doesn't, it's okay as well.
I think
The other person said, well, why are you changing the signs? And so that was just another, I was like, we're changing the signs. Now here's the thing.
I think when we, if I may, when we asked Cheryl if she would do some checking, our concern was we didn't want it to be in any way offensive.
Right.
And I think it's very clear
Right,
that nobody sees it as offensive.
Nobody
so
sees
I
it as
thought that
offensive.
The DEI committee came in with saying, wasn't their statement that it's not traditional cultural for the Penobscots, for the Wabanaki people to name places after.
That's not
people?
what the DEI committee said. That's what I reported back from them when we had a meeting, when Cindy and I had a meeting with Darren Ronco and John Bear Mitchell, and then again, when James Francis came and talked to council. One of the points that they made was, we don't quite understand why you would name a place after a person. Having said that, I don't think James Francis weighed in on the logo, but the other two did say it's a historic representation. It's not a cartoon character. We understand why you're doing it. So it really leaves it in that place of, if council wants to do it, then council can do what they want. But I mean, the DEI committee didn't have any of the history that there was a time when the Penobscot Nation was not happy with our logo. The headdress was wrong. They, back in the early 90s, they sent a message, I don't know how, to council. Council heard that message, worked with them to change the seal, which is why we have the seal we have today.
Right.
So at that point, it wasn't screaming, get rid of the seal, because I think council was so receptive to that, they probably would have been receptive if somebody had found it offensive.
so, Terry, if you want a motion to move this along, I would.
Yeah, definitely.
I would move that we adopt the middle sign in the upper row.
Yes.
You have something in your hand that writes?
And Maggie, that's the one you were okay with also, the middle one that has the border of the maroon color.
Yes.
How's everybody else feeling?
That's my favorite.
You good, Lori?
So
Awesome.
what we will do, Mitch is still trying to get a call back on pricing. But he has put it out there. And we right now are working on a mock-up letterhead mini kind of logo that will tie into this. And we will bring that back when Mitch and Mel are ready, but the scale is kind of different and they're having to move a lot of pieces and they said it was impossible. My staff never tells me something is impossible.
Great, I'm excited to get those horrible signs. That's all for me.
Perfect. So, the manager's report, I noticed looking ahead that we have the fire ordinance revision on the agenda for public hearing. I added that to the agenda for your review. The thing that we are doing here is simply trying to change the structure to allow us. I didn't just do, if you notice, I tried to keep it so if we go back to a fire chief and a police chief, we're not gonna have to review this again.
Right.
So I know that you've had it for just a day and a half. The blue is are my corrections, the red were the initial suggestions. I would, if you're okay with it, we would put it forward for a public hearing. That still has to come back to council unless you make major changes. If you're not, that is perfectly fine. I missed the agenda, so we can absolutely table the public hearing and have it later if that works better for you.
In reaction, I personally didn't see anything wrong with it at all.
And this is because of the staff, or because of the way yeah,
So
that's what I thought, yeah.
we do not have a labeled fire chief. We have a public safety director who is right in the appointment sheet. It says serving as the chief fire official. That's important because under state law, that when we endowed him with that title, he then was endowed with lots of authority to maintain order and public safety.
Okay.
It's good.
So the only other thing, well, I have lots, but I don't want to keep you for a long time. We are in December. December is usually a busy month for lots of things. We used to do the big, huge light up the night celebration, and part of the feedback that we got about that was it was one night in the middle of the week that we started early because it's dark early. And people were really frustrated. Businesses were frustrated because it wasn't a time that they really needed to pack their businesses, and people would need it. You know, they would miss it, and then they kind of had missed out on everything. So one of the things that we've looked at is, are there ways that we can celebrate the winter season? Because remember, we don't celebrate any kind of religious holidays at the town. So can we celebrate the season in a way that people can engage with on their own time, in their own way? So we want to build a community. We want to do those things. They're the reasons that we have our community services. So this year we are working with a private landowner to light up part of the Stillwater Trail. This is, last year it was all the private landowner. This year he's working with us so that we can do things like make sure that we know when Brownies Park needs to be sanded, put some effort into clearing and maintaining the trail, which we normally would not do as part of this. So that runs every night once it starts. Not going to start tonight because they ran into a technical issue. They had hoped it would. Hoping
Lights
it
are
would.
all right, came by.
Oh, well, maybe they're, so
Still working on
they are planning to turn the lights off around 9 o'clock. Oh, the parking lights turn off at 9 and the trail lights will turn off at 10 on weekdays and 11 at weekends. That we're having another Light Up the Community decoration challenge, and as part of that, we're also trying to raise awareness about quickly blinking lights causing issue for some people with epilepsy and other disorders or diseases. So we'll continue to do that. The library is running Do Good December, so it's a series of things and really trying to connect in the community. We are trying to encourage donations to the Black Bear Exchange food drive this year as part of that. And if you notice, snowflakes are appearing along downtown, and Megan and Sean are working to get the front lit up again. Very similar to last year, only she assures me better. So
It was like, there was one snowflake this morning, then there was another one.
so
They're putting up one snowflake at a time.
well, we're having some issues because some of them will go up. Others of them, we're having a hard time getting them to stay where they're supposed to be. And a lot of them are plugged in and not powered. So
Oh, I
we're
see.
working at it a piece at
I thought maybe it
piece
was
at
like a
time.
snowstorm, like there was a flake.
And I will give my my kudos to, my hats are off to the Public Works team. They did a really nice job on the first major winter event, which wasn't super major, but still, that's always, we've got people in new trucks doing new things, so.
Is Orono Land Trust helping out with the trails too? The lighted trail? Orono Land Trust, no. The trail of,
The river,
the river
Riverwalk?
trail.
they might be.
Are they, Mitch is
they're-
going, yeah.
Okay, yes, he's behind me, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't
Landowner has
know.
spoken to a lot of the folks that are involved in
In
that.
Orono,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
okay, to help out just a little bit.
Anything else for us?
You know what? We did talk about not having a council meeting on the 20th because I have my test on the 21st. We did have that conversation. I'll have to do some
Don't think
thinking.
about that. We
I'll
can,
have to think about that.
yeah, we're gonna meet, we know we're gonna meet next week.
Yes, we have a regular council meeting next week. And that everybody should have gotten an invitation for the employee recognition dinner
Next Thursday.
next Thursday. This Wednesday, we are, when somebody works for us for a very long time and they're getting ready to retire, we ask them how they want to celebrate that. Like, do you want a cake? Do you want to invite the community? What do you want to, you work for us for 30 years, we should send you off the way you want to be sent off. So I asked Joe Madigan that because he's getting down at the end of December. We have not had a cabin fever reliever in 2 years because of the pandemic. He really wanted a cabin fever reliever, so we are doing one for him this Wednesday. So potluck. Yeah,
Excellent.
go Joe.
And I'm
Okay.
sorry, Sophie, I received this in the regular mail, not my email, so it's escaping me, but we're supposed to let Nancy know by the end of today if we are going to the employee
Yeah,
appreciation.
I'd love to be able to give a head count.
Okay.
You can just tell me and I can.
Oh, great. Yes.
And I've talked to Nancy, I'm not gonna be able to make.
What's the date?
the
16th, that's right.
Thursday, 11:30, right?
11 to 1:30, I think.
At the Black Bear.
Yeah, Tracy, once again, did a nice job for us.
Okay, no further business. I'd like a motion to adjourn.
So moved, second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hands. Wave.
There.
We are done.